Peach.
That's what I said to Alexis. I'm like,
Oops. I'm turn this off. I guess you can't turn it on, so you lights is out.
are they hot?
They're hot.
Oh, yeah, I guess they're on.
Real hot.
Maybe she's rounding up people who are coming.
Especially with those steps.
Yeah. I know what you're saying because different classes have different things you gotta get adjusted. I got to
Hello, everyone. We will get started in about 2 minutes. Oh, she, well. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone is doing okay this afternoon. My name is Earl Harris. I am the state representative for House District 2 in Northwest Indiana. And then I also serve as the chair of the Indiana Black Legislative Caucus. We thank you for spending some time with us today on this Saturday. We have been doing, or IBLC has been doing for more years than I've been in office, town halls throughout the state of Indiana. So when session is over, we schedule town halls. We hit different parts of the state. We were doing 6. We've actually added the last 2 years doing 7, because what we feel like is important for us to do and vital is to get out, go across the state, and talk to people about legislation that passed in the session that just ended, especially this year being a budget year. So we plan these town halls. We hit different areas. And then we really get into breaking down the budget, as this is a budget year, and then different areas, healthcare, education, infrastructure, et cetera. And then also we'll talk about bills that were authored that we think are good but did not pass, as well as bills that were authored that are not so good that did not pass, because usually both of those groups come back up. So we want to make sure that we give you kind of heads up of that. And again, we are we're voted in by our constituents, we're voted in by you, and so we know that it's vital for us and important for us to get out and talk to you. We will also, after we go through the agenda of things we're going to talk about, we will open it up to questions. So we'll make sure we take care of that. In fact, I didn't double check, but you should have, if you grab the green folder coming in, or the folders coming in, you should have an index card in there to write down your questions. So we'll gather those up a little later. As we move on with the program here, I would like to do some introductions of our members that have joined us. We are joined, I'll start on the far right. We are joined by Senator Greg Taylor. He is from the Indianapolis area. We're also joined, go ahead. We're also joined by Representative John Bartlett, also from the Indianapolis area. And then we have Representative Carolyn Jackson, whom is from Northwest Indiana as well. Representative Jackson also serves as the vice chair of IBLC. And then last but not least, I have to say her name first. Senator Andrea Hunley from Indianapolis. Lives in Indianapolis, but I believe is from here. Senator, I would appreciate it if your fan club didn't clap every time you talk. No, we're glad. I had to give her a little bit of fun. We have a couple of people that will be joining us that are delayed, but we want to get things started. Before we really get into the meat of it, I would, if I may, ask, and I'm going to put her on the spot because we didn't get a chance to talk about this ahead of time, but Mayor, would you like to come up and greet the crowd and say some words?
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. So honored to be here, so honored to have our guests in our city again. They are faithful to making sure that they come before the city of Fort Wayne and share all that they have had to work with down at the legislation, fighting for our opportunities, for our freedoms, and for our things that make Fort Wayne and the state of Indiana great, especially for African American individuals. And I can tell you, when I've spent time just this year down in the State House, they've always made a space for me to be able to come in and share the concerns that I have as mayor and just as an individual, if you would, to be able to speak to them. So I'm excited about what we will learn today, and I am excited about hearing how we can continue fighting the good fight so that we can make positive change for all of our community and our state of Indiana. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we continue on, if you wouldn't mind, I know I see Representative Kyle Miller here and some other electeds. If you are an elected official, if you wouldn't mind, please standing up and announcing whom you are. Representative, we'll start with you.
Representative Kyle Miller, State Representative District, House District 82. Gary Camp, Wayne Township Assessor, for Fort Wayne.
Good morning, Pat Turner, Wayne Township Board Member.
Woman at large, Michelle Chambers, DNC rep for State of Indiana, your moderator this afternoon.
Thank you so much for all of you being here. Before we hand it over to our moderator, I do want to share one other quick piece of information. Every year, IBLC comes out with a theme. We have a focus. So everyone gets to present one piece of legislation to the agenda for IBLC. We have a press conference at the beginning of session. We meet with the four leaders and the governor to talk about this agenda, really to get whatever that agenda is going. So our 2025 agenda was healthy bodies, healthy minds, which really meant obviously we were focusing on healthcare. So we have not locked in our 2026 agenda yet, but we will work on getting that locked in. If I may, if you want to come up, our moderator. And while you're coming up, we have been joined by another representative from the Indianapolis area, Representative Robin Shackelford. And I mentioned our 2025 focus being healthcare. Representative Shackelford is the ranking minority member on the House Healthcare Committee.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is a good day in our city. Again, I am your councilwoman at large and your DNC representative for the state of Indiana. You know, today's town hall, if you have, thank you. I'm sure as you have learned already, part of today's town hall is, our Indiana Black Legislator Caucus, these wonderful people who sit before you, annual statewide tour. It's more than a meeting, it's a mandate. We stand at the hinge moment for Indiana. As you know, our Vice President came to visit us this week. This week, Vice President J.D. Vance met with the Governor Mike Braun and legislative leaders. That wasn't theater in someone else's backyard. That was here in ours. And let me be plain. It is my prayer and my belief that Indiana will not be the next Texas. Our General Assembly isn't in session right now. They're here doing a town hall. That gives us a gift time to organize before January because policy is shaped long before the gavel drops. So here's your charge for today. Learn the issues you'll hear today. Link up with IBLC, with your neighbors and trusted community partners. Lean in. Schedule district meetings. Make sure you're connected to the local party. Fort Wayne, we are a whole city, diverse, determined, and I like to say, especially with our fearless leader, unbought. When the temperature rises, we rise higher with truth and turnout. With tenacity, representation matters, and activation is even more important. And inaction, I'm so glad to see so many people here this afternoon, is a luxury we do not have with these 2026 elections ahead of us. So again, I welcome ILBC Town Hall. Let's listen, let's mobilize, and let's continue to move Indiana forward together. All righty, so. Okay. Now I would like to bring forward Representative Carolyn Jackson to talk about the Unity Rally.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. The IBLC held the Unity Rally at the State House January 29th. We held this rally because we had already received the message of what directions Governor Braun planned to take our state. And we felt in order to let everybody know so they could go back to their communities and they could start working on advocating for what's right, what's fair, and what's just for our state, that we would hold a unity rally where we would invite people from all over the state to come and participate and get the news as early as possible. Now, there are so many changes that were going on, and in order to get that information out, we understand that many communities do not receive the news to date of what's going on downstate. Many of the information that's going on, you have to rely on those individuals who represent you to come and spread the word, not the newspaper. Okay, luckily you all are in an area where you get the information from your legislators. You have Representative Kyle here, and you have Representative Giaquina, whom I'm sure provide you an up-to-date. But again, there is that lack. So that's why we held it that day. It was very successful. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 or 400 individuals there. We packed the State House that day. And it was not just Indianapolis individuals, but it was individuals from every corner of the state that was there. They came with their protest signs. They came with an open heart and open mind to take information back. And we have since then been constantly communicating with them as to what's going on. And if you have not already signed up by giving us your email, we encourage you to do so prior to you leaving today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Jackson. Now, one of the most important parts of today's town hall is hearing directly from our legislators about their victories. Now, they have had some victories. They may be in the minority, but they have still had victories in this 2025 session. These are bills that made it across the finish line and are now law in the state of Indiana. Each of these leaders have fought for their, no?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Oh, I
was having a conversation.
Oh, okay, sorry. I pay attention. It's the teacher in me. Okay.
We should be quiet. I'm fine.
Okay, okay. Sorry, y'all. All righty, so we will start with Representative Shackelford talking about HB 1065.
Say good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So this microphone is so far apart. I'm on my tippy toes. But real quick, House Bill 1065. This is clinical trials For the longest time, we've been trying to get more minorities, more underserved people to be able to participate in clinical trials. We know that on average, only about 7% of patients actually participate, and usually 20% of those clinical trials fail because of a lack of participation. So what this bill does is it allows a third party to help pay and cover some of the costs that a participant will have to endure in order to be in one of these trials. On average, it costs anywhere from $600 to $900 a month to participate in a cancer clinical trial. So some of those things that people will be able to pay for is your travel, your lodging, your food, those type of things. And not only will it pay for the person that's going, but it will also pay for one caregiver. So if you know anyone that's going through cancer, which has heavily affected my family, and anyone that needs that help, have them start looking out at some of those organizations, some of those hospital foundations that now will be able to help pay for some of the clinical trial expenses. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have Representative John Bartlett, HB 1416.
Good afternoon. House Bill 1416, we're ready to get it across the finish line. It's about human trafficking. Excuse me. Human trafficking is a $276 billion a year industry. $276 billion a year industry. And too many folk in Indiana think that it does not happen here, but it does. I think the largest human trafficking event in the United States, the largest single event, is the 500-mile race. So we were able to get some legislation passed to put signs in service stations as you travel across the great state of Indiana and stop at the rest areas, the welcoming centers. You go into the restrooms, because if you're being trafficked, the one time you get to be by yourself is when you go to the restroom. So it will identify what human trafficking is and the human trafficking hotline that you can call and get help. Massage parlors can display those human trafficking signs as well. There was some glitches with how we handled the massage parlors, and so we had to back that down some, but we've had some meetings with the massage therapists to separate out massage therapists from the human trafficking aspect of it. We want to do some legislation, but we don't want to over-legislate and have unintended consequences. Also, hotel and motel workers will get online training, like a 1-hour online training as to what human trafficking is and what to do, how to do, and who to call when they see it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll have Representative Earl Harris talk about HB 1292, 1148, and a few others.
Thank you. We have a couple of members that had bills that passed that are not able to join us. I wanted to talk about theirs first. First is Senate Bill 331, which was authored by Senator Mark Spencer. He's also from Northwest Indiana and one of our newest members coming in this session. Mark's bill, and I served as a co-sponsor on this piece of legislation. I have to be honest, this is one of those things I've seen in movies, but the reality is he did a lot of research and had a lot of conversation with law enforcement, happens. And that is that people will do things to change the color of their vehicle. So when you look at, we can obviously paint it, they can be wrapped. Again, I've seen this in movies where someone drives in a car wash, it washes off the color, and then they come out a different color. So what 331 does is it mandates that you have to report that you have changed the color of your car. Because what's happening is things are happening where cars are being used in crimes. The car may be blue, and then all of a sudden it's black. Well, that's, if people are looking for, law enforcement are looking for one color because that's the color that it's legally registered as, they're not looking at a different color. So that changes, that makes that mandatory for people to do. We also have Representative Greg Porter. His House bill is 1148. It has to do with confidentiality of birth and stillbirth records. The bill protects Hoosiers' privacy by ensuring that their medical records remain confidential during their lifetimes. The bill increases the number of years a stillbirth record stays private. It goes from 75 years to 99. The bill keeps medical records confidential unless the patient otherwise chooses. So that's a little bit of protection from people trying to do some, let's just say, nefarious things. And then I had a couple of bills that became law. The first one is 1095. About 4 years ago in Indiana, we created an Indiana Crime Gun Task Force. And so this started in the 8 counties that are in the Indianapolis area. And it basically takes local, state, federal, and links them together to work on getting illegal guns off of the streets. So the task force in 2024 investigated over 150 leads, resulted in the arrest of 232 individuals. The effort led to the seizure of more than 270 illegal firearms and over, because unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, narcotics and drugs go together, over 75,000 grams of illegal narcotics were taken off the street. So that's a win.
Very good.
So 2 years ago during the budget session, and some of you, this bill may sound a little familiar, Allen County was added into the Indiana Crime Gun Task Force. The eventual plan is to have it go throughout the state. So I had filed an amendment to add in Lake County on the floor and was asked by Representative Carball, who's from here, and Representative Sturwald, who started this. We really can only do one at a time, and they promised me if I waited 2 years, again hitting on another budget year, that they would work with me to get this passed. So they did, true to their word, get this passed. So Lake County has been added on to the Indiana Crime Gun Task Force. And then the other bill I passed is House Bill 1292, which creates the Northwest Indiana Professional Sports Commission. So 2 seconds of back history. I'm following in the footsteps of my parents. My father had this seat for 33 years until he passed away in March of 15. And then my mother was elected to finish his term, and then I was elected. One of the things my father was working on was getting professional sports to come to Northwest Indiana. So this creates a commission that their goal and job is to work on that. So it's different counties, it's different cities. There's the governor gets one choice. In fact, we have our first meeting coming up this Wednesday, so this week. So excited about that. I have a little bit of fun with this. How many of you are cricket fans? Cricket. I know that sounds nice. So I actually had, and it actually is a growing sport in the United States. And I know the answer to this based on that. How many of you know that there is actually a professional cricket league in the United States? Yeah, I know that's a 0. I understand that. So there's a gentleman that's involved with that reached out to me because they're looking at adding a 7th team to the sport, and they're looking at Northwest Indiana as a location. So the gentleman came out, we showed him some different spots, et cetera. So we're in the process of working on that. So I'm glad that that's working out. We've also had, and I've had a lot of fun over this year, and I filed the bill last year, with being interviewed by Chicago media because the Chicago Bears are trying to working on figuring out where they're going to land. And we're putting Northwest Indiana, trying to throw that in the hat of getting them to come to Northwest Indiana as well. So looking at, and since I'm from East Chicago, Indiana, I think the East Chicago Bears would be a great name. Just add in one word and we're good. No, they would stay the Chicago Bears, but still. And you know, not all sports teams play where they're named. When you look at the Jets and the Giants, they're New York, but they actually play in New Jersey. So excited about what we're going to do with this commission and looking forward to it bringing more tourism to Northwest Indiana and increasing student opportunities and economic development for our state of Indiana. I'm going to roll right into our legislative panel since I have the first part. And I'm going to talk to you about the budget. So Indiana does a budget every 2 years. So this was the budget year. Excuse me. By law, we have to do this. We have to make sure that the budget is concrete and finalized. For Indiana, our budget for 2 years is about $45 billion. We did have a little bit of a shortfall. So money that was received, that states would receive from the previous administration due to COVID, those funds are gone. So that had an impact. Our income of what we expected had an impact. So we were looking at, in Indiana, about a $2.4 billion revenue shortfall. So here's how the budget works. And I'm on Ways and Means. Representative Pryor, whom will be here, is on Ways and Means. Representative Porter, who's unfortunately can't make it, is the chair of Ways and Means. And I think on the Senate side, Representative Randolph, I believe, is on Appropriations. Am I forgetting somebody else? That's it? Okay. So we're engaged in the budget process. So the way the budget works is the governor puts out their version. This is what I want, this is what I want, this is great, blah, 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 blah. Then it goes to the House. To some degree, the House, which is led by the Republican side, kind of looks at it and goes, okay, and then they put out a budget. And then that budget goes through the whole process on the House in terms of going through Ways and Means and going through the main floor. And then once the budget is finalized on the House side, it then is sent over to the Senate side, where it starts all over again, and the Senate looks at, we want to do this change, et cetera, et cetera. And what I believe always happens, and I'm putting an asterisk on the always, is once the budget passes through the Senate side, it ends up in conference committee. So that's when I hate to use the word fighting, but for lack of a better, negotiating, we'll use that word. The negotiating conversation happens about the budget before it is finalized. I do want to share with you some things that came out of it. Oh, I'm sorry. The budget mainly comes from, our funds mainly come from individual income taxes, corporate taxes, sales taxes, and we do receive funds from the federal level. We are number 3 in the nation in terms of the amount of funds we receive. Louisiana and Mississippi are in front of us. About 90% of our Medicaid money actually comes from the federal level. So just kind of an FYI there for you. So when the budget was going through and being finalized, we looked at some ways to try to increase the amount of revenue that came in. We know that we're surrounded, as Indiana, we're surrounded by states where cannabis is legal, whether it's recreational or medical. Indiana is not. That was something that was put on the table. iGaming was put on the table. Those were rejected, but we did add an increase in our cigarette tax. So the cigarette tax has gone up to $2 per pack. I heard a yeah out there from somebody. That will bring in about $800 million over the next 2 years to help fund Medicaid. So it's good that something that is not good for your health will bring in funds to help support our funding in terms of health care. Another last-minute change was that $100 million was cut from public health funding. So it's good that additional cigarette tax is coming in because that was dropped. So we went from $100 million, dropping us to $40 million a year. K-12 was infected in terms of funding. We know that we have, K-12, let me talk about this first. In terms of education, about half of our budget is education related, and I know that Senator Hundley is going to give you more information about education. And then Representative Pryor, whom will be joining us, is going to talk to you more about property tax. But when you look at it, 47% of it is K-12 funding, 9% is higher eds. So again, we have a lot of our budget that goes to education. Charter schools received a 34% increase. And think about that, what that means to our traditional schools. Virtual schools received an increase in funds. And then our voucher program pretty much has become universal. 2 years ago, if you remember, the history of vouchers is it was supposed to support people that had lower income, their kids weren't going to a great school, help them to have money to go send their kids to a better school. 2 years ago, it was modified where I believe you could make up to about $220,000 and receive voucher money. Think about that, $220,000. Well, now we've just made it universal, and as one of the representatives said on the floor, if Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, with his 14, 15, however many kids he has today, lived in Indiana, he would receive voucher money. So think about that. So to wrap up, The 13th check, which has been an off and on thing here recently, 13th check was added in, but with a 5% decrease. We were a little confused by that. We did not fully fund kindergarten, and college did lose some funding support. So that's a little bit about the budget, but thank you for your time, and we'll keep moving on and let some of the others contribute. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have Senator Andrea Huntley come up and talk, but we should find some inspiration in that someone was thinking outside the box to be able to fund the deduction in Medicaid. That was good information that we just received. Senator?
Great, thank you. All right. It's always good to be back home. I am a Snyder High School graduate, so if there are any Panthers in the house, yes, that's right. I'm always excited to be back home. So I moved to Indy, though, when I started teaching at a big high school there. And so I've been in education for 20 years. It's a big passion of mine. So I'm going to take my 4 minutes really fast to talk about education, but know that I could go on all day long.
You can have 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you. You gave me an extra 5 minutes. So I want to pick up where our chair left off, which is with the vouchers, and just to really drill home what this means for us in terms of our public education funding. We are spending $1 billion over the course of our budget cycle, so over those 2 years, on vouchers. And those vouchers are dollars that are public dollars, or your dollars that are going to fund our private schools. Now, we've got some really great private education here in Fort Wayne. All right, shout out to, my competing schools of Concordia and Dwenger and Lures, right? Great, great, great education that you can get there. But the issue is that every time we take $1 from the pie that is allocated for education, and we give it over here to the private schools, we're taking it away from our public schools. That's what's happening. And so what we have to do is, if the state has decided that they want to take public dollars and send them to private schools, then we need to bake a whole new pie. They need to cut from somewhere else if they want to make it happen, but we cannot keep cutting from our traditional public schools. And so that's a real area that even our charter schools also have begun to realize that they're not being fully supported because all of this money is being diverted to voucher programs. So just keep your eyes wide open on that. A couple of bills, and if in your folders today, you all got a packet here of the bill summaries. And so the education section is on page 5. I'm not going to go through every single bill, but in case you want some light reading for later, you've got more here. So a couple of them I do want to highlight for us, though, is House Bill 1634. This is about math education. And this is really an important piece of legislation, especially for our black students, especially from our students from neighborhoods that maybe don't have access to high-quality math instruction. And what it says that if a student is making certain grades, and if they get certain score on their iLearn assessment, then they have to be enrolled in a higher level math course. This is a big deal because the higher level math courses are what put you on a path if you'd like to go to a 2-year technical school or if you want to go on to 4-year university. Your higher level math is the key to get there. And what's happened for kids that look like me growing up is that if a teacher didn't think you were smart enough, they wouldn't recommend you for that upper level math course. And so now by saying in law that as long as a kid qualifies, it doesn't matter, teacher, what you think. It doesn't matter what assumptions you're making about them because of what they look like or where they come from. You have to put them in the higher level course. And so that's really big, and that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for our kids. So make sure that folks know about that in our communities. Another is Senate Bill 482. We've had a lot of focus on absenteeism, on chronic absenteeism, making sure that students are showing up to schools. So it's really important that families know that if your child doesn't come to school, there are real consequences. We're also working on ways to support the reasons why students don't show up for school. And so that's what Senate Bill 482 does. And then Senate Bill 287 is the one that established the partisan school boards. Yes, groan. I heard it. So the partisan school board elections mean now that any candidate who runs for school board has the option to identify themselves with a political party. So they can identify as Democrat, Republican, Independent, or they can leave it blank. So there is that option, but we also know that there's going to be community pressure from folks to identify with the party, and quite frankly, we don't need for our school boards where we are making contracts and we are looking at things like what's the best math textbook for students, what's the best way for us to fund school lunches when the government is cutting funding. None of those conversations about how best to serve kids should be political. But now we're forcing politics into our school boards with Senate Bill 287. Absolutely. And then the other piece is is with our school referenda. So we also know, I mentioned that, we've really just continued to cut education funding for public schools, but with we've made some changes to the referenda of when it can be on the ballot, when people can vote on school referendum, and that's going to be make it just even more challenging for those school referenda to pass. And so that's something to pay attention to as well. And so with that, I will pause, and I'll be back up in a little while to talk about utilities. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator. So with this being our first week of school, that was a wealth of information that the Senator just provided us with. And find some inspiration and encourage your neighbors to go to our school board so that you can understand how this legislation is affecting us locally. Now we will have Senator Shackelford. Thank you.
Don't be demoting me to senator.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative, pardon me.
Representative Shackelford.
Representative Shackelford, sorry. I know.
That's our internal joke. We're all even up here. It's all equal. I'm going to set my timer because, like Senator Hundley, I can talk about health and insurance forever. But there's about 4 bills that I want to make sure that you guys are aware of. We had a lot of healthcare changes over this session. Of course, it was a budget year, and what we're going to see is a lot of cuts. If you guys heard of all the cuts that's going to take place with Medicaid, with the Healthy Indiana plan, then that's some of the stuff I'm going to go over real quickly. So the bill that had the Medicaid cuts was Senate Bill 2, and it was called Medicaid Matters. And there's 5 big changes in that bill that I want to make sure that you're aware of. One, the Healthy Indiana plan. How many of you guys are familiar with our Healthy Indiana plan? Okay, great. So that is the plan that we use for our Medicaid expansion to cover those adults 19 to 64. Right now, we have about 600,000 people in this plan, and it continues to grow. So one of the things they wanted to do was cap it at $500K. So we fought back so much that they removed the cap, but they did put in there that it was going to be capped based on the appropriations that we get from the federal government. And we'll come back to that because then what that does is create even a greater cap because of all the cuts that has taken place at the federal level. Next, the work and volunteer requirements. Now everyone will be required to work or volunteer at least 20 hours a week. We have put a lot of exceptions in there. Indiana had about 8 exceptions. We are not going to be able to do all those exceptions because of the changes that came down to the federal government. Some of the exceptions that will still be in there is if you are disabled or if you're taking care of a child. They lowered that age level. I believe it's 6 years old. So if you have kids that are 7 or 8, then you still must work. So the work requirements are still in there. Redetermination. Everyone knows that when you're going to redetermine for Medicaid, it's an annual thing. It takes a lot of time, a lot of paperwork, a lot of back and forth. They have now changed that to quarterly. So you are now going to have to submit your income and all that paperwork quarterly. And then what they also did was prohibit hospitals and providers from doing any kind of marketing or advertising because they are trying to decrease how many people are in Medicaid, not increase. So you will see less of those advertisements. It affects nonprofits and communities because a lot of times Anthem, Humana, and UHC, which are our companies that do the Medicaid program, they would sponsor a lot of events and a lot of community events. So you're going to see those sponsorships pull back. And then lastly is the preemptive eligibility that takes place in hospitals. When you go to the hospital and they think that you may be eligible for Medicaid and they go ahead and fill out the paperwork, they have made that more convoluted for the hospitals. And if they get in trouble, they get in trouble about 3 times, and then they lose their ability to be able to do preemptive eligibility. So there are going to be some big changes in Medicaid that's going to be coming down. The next bill is House Bill 1004, and that bill was primarily about nonprofit hospitals. So I don't want you guys to get all focused on the nonprofit hospital part, but the part that is in there that is going to affect a lot of people is that's where they put in that HIP phase-out period being taken out. So if we did not get 90% of our income from the federal government, now it says that there was no longer going to be a phase-out period for the people that were on HIP. You are automatically going to lose your coverage ASAP. And so that is huge because we did not get the money that we needed from the federal government. HIP is financed through 2 things, cigarette taxes and the provider tax that the hospital pay. We raised the cigarette tax by $2, so that helped gave us some of the money. But for the provider tax, the federal government decreased now how much states can get for that provider tax. They are going to give Indiana 1 more year to get it at our current level, and then next year it's going to decrease. So that means it'll be less money in that pot for the HIP program. Okay, I see I have 1 more minute. I'm going to go real fast. House Bill 1604, the cost sharing. This is one of those things that's hard to explain in 1 minute, but I'm going to try to explain it. Basically, if you get any assistance from a drug card and that assistance was not going towards your deductible, now it will start going towards your deductible. If you find something cheaper, say on Amazon, that's covered by your health insurance company, but you want to buy it on your own, now they have to apply that towards your deductible. And then one last quick one, House Bill 1226. Any seniors down here on Medicare supplement? Anybody on a Medicare supplement? So I see a couple of seniors. Indiana will become a birthday state starting next year. That means you will be eligible to bargain shop next year and stay in your same level, and you can switch insurance companies, which is huge for seniors because when you've been with one company, they keep raising the rates and you get stuck with that company. So come next year, you'll be able to shop around without any underwriting, and you can sign up for another company. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Let's welcome Representative Renee Pack from Indianapolis. Next, we have coming up is Representative Jackson. Representative Jackson.
Our feet get tangled up between those chair legs, so we don't want to give you anything to get excited about today. But anyway, I serve on the Children Human Affairs Committee, and I'm going to talk about House Bill 1098 just briefly. This bill is a bill that was much, much needed. The Commission on Improving the Status of Children for the State of Indiana has always excluded staff from the Commission. I've attended many meetings, and everybody gets a chance to testify, but we don't have anyone from the Commission to actually vote and to come to the meetings that we have that don't include one where there's testimony. So this was a win for us to be able to have a staff person on the actual committee where they can bring information back, and hopefully we can make a change within the state when it comes to children who are receiving benefits from the state. The other one was the Child Welfare Task Force. This bill was authored. It says it was authored by Representative Devine, but in reality is, you know, we advocate for many things throughout the state, but only legislators can actually author a bill. In this particular instance, this idea came from an LA who happened to be the chair's assistant. Later, she got a job working directly with, I believe it is IACA. And as a result of that, she had been to many of the meetings that we've had, the committee meetings, and she knew what we wanted. So she brought the idea, she did the research, and fortunate for us, Representative Devine carried the bill and I co-authored it. And what this bill will require is a task force to study. It says different ideas, but what the ideas are, one is child fatality, because as you know, every time you pick up the newspaper, there is some child who has been killed at the hands of their family members or foster family. The other idea that they will be studying has to do with the time frame it takes DCS to decide whether they're going to put a child in foster care or whether they're going to give them back to those family members, because many families who are trying to adopt children are waiting too long. So those are the good things, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Now we will have Senator Greg Taylor. He'll be talking about economic and workforce development.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everybody. Before I get started, just a full disclosure, I grew up down the street at Marion, Indiana. Number one in the North Central Conference. We beat Northrop a lot over at the Caucus. Okay. Ain't that right, John? Okay. One time? Come on, man. We beat you guys like 4 years in a row. But anyway.
Who's counting, right?
I represent the west side of Indianapolis, and I've been in the legislature since 2008. So I'm going to go through real quick 3 minutes of different economic development things that happen. And hopefully, if you start, I think the economic development part of our agenda starts on page 23 of the booklet that you have there with you. House Bill 1079. By the way, when we say HB, that's House Bill. SB is Senate bill. If it has 4 numbers, it's a House bill. If it has 3 numbers, it's a Senate bill. So just for your reference, I wanted to let you know that. One of the property matters that I think everyone here in the community should know was House Bill 1079. I think this is important. The Indiana law allowed, after you haven't paid your rent on a storage unit for 90 days, allowed the owner of the storage unit to sell your property. We have cut that in half to 45 days starting July 1st of 2025. So if you have people who have stuff in storage units, make sure that you don't get behind more than 45 days. Otherwise, they can sell your property. House Bill 1167 has to do with fentanyl test strips. As you know, Indiana has had some cases of fentanyl discovery, and in most cases you don't know it even is there until someone has ingested it. And we had a little quirky law that said that if you use a test strip, then the test strip was considered to be paraphernalia. And one of my colleagues offered this legislation about 4 years ago, but until a Republican decided to offer it, they decided to pass it, but we at least have it this year. Some good stuff. We have I consider this to be a good thing. If you guys know, you have food vendors around the state of Indiana who have those food trucks and everything. House Bill 1577 establishes the State Department of Health needs to come up with standard practices on where and how those vendors can operate, and also cleanliness standards, so you won't have this hodgepodge of different health departments having different rules, so you can travel from place to place and still have the same standards. So that's a good thing, I think. Last but not least, which affects this community, some of you may have heard the fact that there was a big push for a casino to come to this area. That bill did not pass, no matter where you are on the issue. But what we did do There is a casino license that's losing a lot of money down in southern Indiana. In Kentucky and in Ohio, they passed legislation for casinos, so that that casino is not making a lot of revenue. So we established a committee that's going to look up and figure out where that license should go, and that was Senate Bill 43. No, it might not come here, but we're going to study where it's going to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Please give a warm welcoming for Representative Charis Pryor, who just joined us. And it looks like we will hear back from Senator Huntley and Harris on utilities and infrastructure.
If you're following along in your handy-dandy book here, utilities begins on 31. And one thing that I want to mention, you all have Indiana, Michigan Power up here, and you may or may not realize, but a portion of your power that comes through Indiana, Michigan Power comes from nuclear, power. And I had the opportunity to go and visit the Cook nuclear facility to learn a little bit more about what they're doing there, because we've been looking at expanding nuclear in some different ways here in the rest of the state. And one piece that I want to point out is that this year we had two bills, Senate Bill 423 and Senate Bill 424, that would allow for the funding of small modular nuclear reactors. Now, what we have in Michigan is a large-scale nuclear facility. It employs 1,000 people, and it's been around for a long time. But what we're talking about here is the funding of experimental technology, where other states that have tried to get projects going have failed to the tune of billions of taxpayer dollars. And these small modular nuclear reactors, there has actually never been one successfully built yet in the United States. So they say that in order to build one, it would take at least 10 years, if not more. But the bills that passed say that a utility company can use the ratepayers' dollars, so it can use the money that you're paying in to go out and experiment and try and build one of these small modular nuclear reactors. Now, I don't know about you, but my utility rates keep going up. It is costing so much, right, to cool our houses this summer. I'm worried about what it's going to look like this winter, but we know that if they're spending money on experimental projects over here on the side, that is only going to be spending our ratepayer dollars even more, which could then cause our rates to increase even further. So I want you to pay a lot of attention to what Indiana Michigan Power is doing with that. They were one of the big proponents of that legislation. So just pay attention there and ask a lot of questions. And then the other piece that I want to mention on utilities that also has to deal with our rates is our data centers. You all just had Google open up here, the data center, which we know, a lot of jobs that help to build that facility and that plant. But we've also got to make sure that we're protecting all of our utilities that are required to run that plant. So our water that it's required, and then as well as our energy production. And so those are places where your voices matter in those conversations and where you need to be paying a lot of attention. I'm going to turn it over to Rep. Harris.
I have to add something because I was in Indianapolis before coming here for meetings, and I paid my utility bill before leaving, and it made me cry a little bit. So I understand the pain of that. The bill I want to talk to you about is House Enroll Act 1461. So one of the committees I serve on is the Roads and Transportation Committee. I serve as the ranking minority member of that, and I know these wonderful people have heard me say this joke before, but please do not blame me for the potholes and the construction traffic that you have to deal with. This is my 9th year in office, and my first year in office, we did a bill that had to do with road funding. So it increased the gas tax, it added on if you have an electric vehicle or a hybrid, there were additional fees you had to pay. It didn't do enough. We know we still have some shortfalls. There were task force last year, So we're in the billions of dollars that Indiana needs in terms of taking roads and bridges that are in okay to bad shape and move them up. So one of the bills that received a lot of attention in certain areas of the state, especially where I am in Northwest Indiana, and then in Indianapolis, was 1461 because of its focus on road funding. So it does a couple of things. It increases the gas tax. It also increases the license plate fees, again, for hybrids and EVs. If you have one of those, you will be paying more. I will tell you there's some parts that were good about this bill, some parts that were bad, and again, some of that is also based on where you live. The program will set aside $100 million to fund the traditional CCMG program. This is community. This has to do with where communities can use in terms of bridges, roads, et cetera. So there was funding put into that. And then the matching amount that the local community had to provide, that was actually lower to 20% for smaller communities. So that's going to help out a little bit. For our Indianapolis friends that are up here, Indianapolis will receive an additional $50 million that will help. If they can match that, that will help with local funding of roads in the Indianapolis area. And I will tell you, as we spend obviously a lot of time in Indianapolis during session, it is greatly appreciated. I did have something that I hit a pothole and popped part of my car off. So, I'm sure I'm not the only person up here that has a story of that. But we are glad to see that the capital city will receive some additional funding. One part that did not love about this bill is that it provides that townships must transfer a certain percentage of their budget to fund establishments or to fund improvements and maintenance of roads. Townships have enough pressure on them, provide great support, and now to say that they have to send part of their budget over to roads, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. So the big part of this bill that for those of us that live in Northwest Indiana, where I am, and Representative Jackson is, and Indianapolis to some degree, is it gives the governor additional ability to bring toll roads. So that is something that we are concerned about in terms of 8094 in Northwest Indiana. There's also talk of 65, 70 cutting across. And I know my time's up, but I'll be done in 30 seconds. Indiana is about 161 miles across, so it takes you about 2 hours to cross. Representative Jackson can attest to this. 8094, which we use a lot, constantly clogged up with trucks, nothing against trucks, but it really is a cross-section for the country. And so that 161 miles, people can cut across Indiana and never stop. Never stop to get gas, never stop to get anything to drink, food, etc. So a lot of wear and tear on the roads without them actually contributing to the economics of it. So we don't love the idea of potentially adding toll roads to Northwest Indiana, but we know as a state we had to do something to help with our infrastructure and our roads and bridges. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Huntley and Representative Harris. We will now hear from Representative Jackson for Energy and Environmental Affairs.
I'm on page, I guess it's 35 here. I'm going to talk briefly about House Bill 1007, Energy Generation Resources. Basically, if you look at this bill, just before you even get to the bill, you look at this bill and you'll see all the co-authors. And all the co-authors are our friends across the aisle. Okay? It basically, what this bill does, it provides a credit against the tax liability for expenses incurred in the manufacture of small modular nuclear reactors. To that, I'm sure that means nothing to you, okay? But I'm going to break it down as quickly and as simple as I can for you. Basically, what happens is, as you know, energy, electricity, et cetera, is getting higher and higher. And with the data centers and with all the electric vehicles, and as the list goes on, the United States does not have the resources. Canada, our friends just north of us, have the second largest resource of uranium in the world. We are buying their resources in order to build these nuclear plants to produce energy. If you remember a couple of months ago, we heard, if you do thus and so, we're going to turn the lights out. It's real. It's real. Okay, the first major country that's the largest producer of uranium is Russia. So you kind of get the picture here, right? Okay, so this is why this bill is so important, and this is why this bill was pushed through the way it was without any of our support. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have Senator Taylor discuss courts and criminal code, civil rights, and social issues.
All right, so let me talk about something that we had. House Bill 1122 was a House bill that said that if you encroach upon within 25 feet of a law enforcement officer, you've heard the 25-foot rule. I just want to inform everybody, and I think the members of the Black Caucus already know this, a federal court has already ruled that to be unconstitutional. So that bill... That bill is not going to, that law is not going to go into effect. Not saying that they might not come back and try to do something to make it less vague, because the bill was vague, and that was one of the arguments that some of us made on the floor when we were talking about it. Also, some good stuff. Well, let me talk about, some good stuff. Expungements of evictions. I actually worked with Senator Liz Brown on a bill, Senate Bill 142, which is a bill that now, if you have an eviction on your credit report, if you pay off that, pay the fine associated with that eviction, let's say you owe the renter owes their landlord money, and then there's court costs. Once you pay that off, the court, upon its own motion, can expunge that eviction from your record. So please inform people in the community that this exists. We've already got criminal expungement, and now we have eviction expungement in Indiana. So please inform the community of that. I don't know if you've heard of the crime of swatting. Swatting is where somebody calls and says that a person is dangerous and get the police to come over, sirens blazing, and all the things associated with going after a criminal. And if they find out you deliberately did that knowing that the person was not dangerous, that is a level 6 felony now. Last but not least, some bad news, but good part. There were some good parts over it. Senate Bill 289, which is a Senate bill that had to do with unlawful discrimination. As most of you know, the Trump administration and the Braun administration is trying to dilute DEI from the books of the state of Indiana. Thanks to my colleagues in the House, the ugly bill got better. It's still ugly. We still will have, you can't get better looking, but it did at least keep language for the MWB and veteran-owned business program. So thank you to my colleagues for getting that done. We still have a fight left because, from what I understand, the governor has not let the bid for the disparity study, which is required by federal law, to keep that program going. So please stay tuned, and hopefully we'll be able to keep our MW and VBE program going in the state of Indiana. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taylor. We have index cards, where you all have index cards in your folders. Alexis, could you stand up? Once we've gone through this report back, will you please present your questions on a card to Alexis? She will come over and pick them up, because we will have a Q&A after the panel discussion. So those cards are in your folders. Are we finding them? I see folks going through. Okay, all right. Next, we will have Senator Pack, and she'll be talking about Veterans Affairs and Public Safety.
Good afternoon. I also don't want to be demoted to a senator either.
Representative.
Okay, that's going to stop right now.
That's the last one. That's the last one.
Yeah, no more of that.
I love my colleagues here. My name is Renee Pack. I'm the ranking minority member of Veteran Affairs and Public Safety. This year, we got a lot of good things done, and one of the things that we're keeping in mind in committee is that we want to be able to entice veterans to come and live in Indiana, okay, because they're really great citizens. They pay all their bills, they're law-abiding, they're patriotic, and we want more of those people to stay here in Indiana. And the reason that we don't appeal to veterans is sometimes because of money, a lot of times because of money. And what we did in HB 1111 is we raised the death benefits for our National Guard friends. When we are called to duty, our National Guardsmen are just as vulnerable as active duty or anybody else to get up, get ready, and get to your post as soon as possible. And I do want to mention also that I am a United States Army veteran, and it wasn't so cute while I was in there, but now I'm real thankful for those years, 5.5, almost 6 years, that I had to serve proudly my country. So do we have any veterans here in the house? Stand up. Thank you so much for your service, and only we know. Only we know what we went through to get through those years and to be here to advocate for our communities. So our death benefit now for National Guardsmen has raised from $8,800 to $20,000. That's a significant increase, and it's very deserving. When you give everything you have, even your life, there's really no price to put on it. But we're trying to do things to help the families and the spouses to get off to a good start after their loved one is deceased. Taxation of military income, I was blessed to co-author this one. And does everybody know what the United States Space Force is? Okay. It's a branch of the military. It's just like Army, Navy. It's a branch of the military, and they have been, like many of you have not heard of them, they've kind of been silent, so we have given them an increase in their military pay also, and I don't have the numbers, but we're working towards getting them up and significant here in the state of Indiana. I'm going to keep this one to last because I'd like one of my colleagues to talk about this one. Perpetual Care Fund deposits will go towards veteran cemeteries. These are monies that will go towards burials, to families, anybody to help them get their loved one buried honorably, and that they don't have to come out of pocket. Okay? And the other one that was Senate Bill 520. I was co-sponsor on that. But I'd like for my colleague, Representative Bartlett, to come up and talk about HB 1416, which he authored. And I think, did you already talk about it? Okay, great. Well, that is all. And the Hall of Fame, the founder, the Military Hall of Fame is on the grounds of Fort Harrison, and the founder is Representative John Bartlett, and he's a great friend to veterans here in the Hoosier State, and we appreciate him. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pack. I want to make sure that we take a moment and recognize one of our Town Hall sponsors for today from the Fort Wayne Urban League, the CEO, Aisha Arrington. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's event. Thank you for all of the work that you were doing in the city. And if you don't know, they have a big sneaker ball coming up. So go to the website and learn all about that. Next, we will have Representative Cheris Pryor, and she has a lot of things that she'll be discussing with us this afternoon. She's a busy representative.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm a little late, but it's for a good reason. Many of you all are probably aware that Pastor Hugh Guy, the senior pastor of Star Bethel Church, passed away, a stalwart in the community. He pastored the church for 56 years. That is the church of my parents. So I did take the opportunity to go and pay my respect and be with my parents and Hugh Guy as well, because he is also a family member. So that's why I'm late. And I don't have on my shirt like my colleagues right now.
That's all right. You're here.
Okay, so I have 3 categories, and that's why all my stuff is together, because I told them I was going to be a little late. If you go to page 47, that starts the elections and government operations portion of the program. But if you go to page 51, study of election issues, this particular bill is going to study whether or not the municipal elections should be held in the same year as the state legislative or even year elections. So right now the local elections are on an off year, but this particular bill is looking at whether or not we should move that. So that's what that bill does. Senate Bill 10 is a bill that will prohibit students from using their student ID to register to vote. We have seen a lot of voter suppression bills come through the legislature, and this is one of them. The IDs that students use, the universities know who their students are. They know if they're in-state. They know if they're out of state. They have been allowed to use their student IDs, but what this bill is saying, that they will no longer be able to use that ID to vote in elections. The next bill on page 54, School Board Matters. This bill effectively will make your school board elections partisan. Right now, if you serve on the school board, you do not have to declare whether or not you are a Democrat, Republican, Green Party, Independent, whatever. What this bill does is opens the door to that. We have consistently tried to make sure that we keep politics out of schools, to keep politics out of elections, and this bill that we have, Senate Bill 287, that opens up that door. And so we fought against that and very concerned about that and the impact that that's going to have on school boards across the state. I serve on the elections committee, and many people who were testified, well, at least last year, the first year they tried to do it. A lot of people testified they don't know if their colleagues are Democrats or Republicans. They don't care. They want to do what is in the best interest of students. So now if you know that a person sitting next to you is a Democrat or Republican, or if that person is running as a Democrat or Republican, that now taints whether the activity and the effectiveness of school boards. So that is something that we wanted to highlight and make people aware of. And if you go to page 56, this is good legislation that did not pass. So there's a lot of bills that get filed during the General Assembly. And there are a lot of good bills that do not get heard. And I think you heard one of my colleagues allude to that there was a bill that a Democrat tried to get passed, did not get passed until the Republican filed the bill. So some of these bills could fall in that category potentially as well. But some of them just don't get a hearing. For instance, House Bill 1063, that is a bill that prohibits racial profiling. So police would not be allowed to stop a person and detain a person simply because of the race of their skin. House Bill 1175, repair of residential rental properties. We have a lot of people who rent properties, and some of the landlords are not the best landlords. And they do take advantage of individuals. And what this particular bill is saying is that a landlord has 24 hours in order to fix a repair that is essential for that rental unit. If they do not repair that unit, they could potentially be fined. The person could also contact the Department of Health and have the Department of Health come in and do an inspection. And the Department of Health can do the repairs. And if they do the repairs, the landlord will have to pay those repairs, and they could potentially face a fine as well. House Bill 1202, Medicaid coverage for obesity treatment. That would allow obesity treatment to be covered by Medicaid, and that's House Bill 1202. Rent escrow, House Bill 1373. Landlords, and this is another one dealing with tenants. If landlords do not do what they're supposed to do, the person's payment or rent could go into an escrow account, and that's what that bill is saying. House Bills 1578, prohibiting the discrimination in housing. This bill would say that you cannot discriminate against a person in housing based on their income, their military status. So that is important. We want to make sure that our veterans and people who are low income don't get discriminated against if they're trying to get a rental unit in housing. And lastly, in this particular category, Senate Bill 97, it would prohibit disconnects for your utilities if it is on the weekend or a holiday or on the weekend. This is because if your utility gets cut off on the weekend, who can you call to try to get that cut back on? So this is really big, particularly as we're looking at all of these utility companies going to the IURC trying to get an increase in their rate. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about is Senate Bill 1. This session was supposed to be the property tax year where we're going to do all of this property tax reform. We did have a bill that came out. The bill that came out, quite frankly, is not the best that we could do, and actually was not a good bill. The one provision in the bill that is a good bill deals with seniors. If you are a senior, you could get up to a $450 credit on your property tax bill. So if you know a senior that qualifies for the over 65 deduction, and there may be some people in here, I'm quickly getting to that age myself, but if you know somebody that qualifies for the over 65 deduction, please have them to contact their Allen County Auditor's Office to apply for that deduction, so that they will be able to have some relief. What this bill is going to do is going to be a tax shift. Because while we may be decreasing taxes in one area and potentially saving locals money, but what we're actually is going to happen is people are going to pay more, because local units of governments are going to have to increase their taxes, and we're allowing local units to increase their taxes. They will have to increase their taxes in order to pay for schools, police, fire. So your local units of governments are going to get hit hard. Schools are going to lose over $744 million. And that has to be made up somewhere. And in order for those things to be made up, local units of governments and schools are going to have to figure out how to make that money up, because the state isn't going to backfill that amount of money. We also, dealing with this bill, referendums. Now, under this particular bill, charter schools would be able to get part of your property tax money. And referendums can only be held during the general elections. Sometimes referendums may be held in the primary. This bill says no, you have to hold those referendums in the general elections. The organizations, I should say, that really make out good under this bill is businesses. Businesses will receive a major tax break. Right now, their personal property tax deduction is $80,000. This bill increased it to $1 million in 2025, and it goes up to $2 million in 2026. So what does that mean? That means that those property taxes are no longer available. And again, that hurts local units of government. And again, that is going to be a tax shift. So all of the things that we hold dear and that are essential, our schools, our police, our fire department, if we still want those things, then locals are going to have to figure out how they're going to make up for that. And this is going to force locals to have to pay, to pass off those property taxes or increase property taxes in order to make up for that. What we did not do in this bill also is we didn't do anything for renters. So as we try to do things for everyone, I talked about the two bills that did not pass. Renters continue to not catch a break. And so while we do everything for businesses and give them breaks, none of that goes to our renters. So that is what is happening with Senate Bill 1, which was supposed to be a good property tax relief bill for everybody, but turned out to be something real good for businesses. Thank you.
So now we will close out this session learning about the bad legislation by Representative that did not pass, John Bartlett.
As Chair Earl Harris stated before, a lot of this legislation will come back. It didn't pass this time because we fought hard to hold down things, and we're on page 65. This is bad legislation that did not pass and will probably come back, so you need to watch it, pay attention to it, and you have a right to come to the State House and speak against any one of these bills in committee. The first one I want to talk about is provides that a voter may vote in primary elections only if the voter has properly and timely affiliated with a political party and held by the political party with which the voter affiliates, allows an individual no later than December 31st before the date of a primary election to affiliate with a political party at the time of the voter registration or by submitting a political party affiliation form. So this is further voter suppression. I got some new glasses 2 days ago, and that took away my lines, and I'm struggling with these. Whoa! But man. Also, the elimination. Representative Lucas had a bill that provides, with some exceptions, beginning July 25th, the state of Indiana may not regulate firearms, ammunition, firearm accessories, and the ownership, possession, carrying, transportation, registration, transferring, and storage of firearms, ammunition, and fire accessories. This is saying we cannot regulate that. We're having shootings daily. After we passed in the legislature the most ridiculous bill I think it's been since I've been there, and I got there in December 2007. And that was permitless gun carry. That bill was pitiful. And now this bill wants to take away any regulations for transporting and having ammunition and whatever. And I think the city of Gary was suing the gun manufacturers for all this chaos that's being created, and they passed legislation out of the House, and I think it passed in the Senate, so we can't sue the gun manufacturers, which is, again, crazy. And the last bill I want to talk about was authored by Bascom, prohibits the use of public funds by a state educational institution for political or programs and campus activities outside the classroom that advocate for campus diversity, equity, and inclusion, or promotes or engages in political or social activism outside the classroom. And that's, again, further trying to do away with DEI. And it's just, that's a bad bill. Keep your eye on it. Come down, testify against it. Remember, it's the people's house. We need your voice.
So let's give one more applause for our legislators, not just for this wonderful, robust update, but for the work that they have done and that they do to turn ideas into law. Thank you. Now we will go into our Q&A section, and I don't have a line either for my readers, so let's see how well I do with these cards. Okay, here we go. Representatives, why are Indiana residents facing gerrymandering in a state that is already red and Republican?
I'll start, and if anyone else wants to join in. And that's one of those we could have an interesting conversation about. So basically, this is a situation where what's happening in Washington, D.C. is coming to Indiana. What's happening is the person in the White House realizes that policy is not working, popularity is waning, sinking, dropping. And so instead of winning on policy and winning on what's right, he's rigging the game. So we obviously know about Texas and what the Democrats there did. It's coming to other red states. So in Indiana, of the 9 congressional districts, well, the 2 senators on the federal level are both Republicans. The 9 congressional districts in Indiana, 7 are Republican. The 2 Democrats are Congressman Frank Mervan, who's in Northwest Indiana, and Andre Carson, whom is in Central Indiana. So the occupant of the White House is trying to get as many new seats as possible as not to lose the House and the Senate based on just not doing a good job. So Frank Mervan, of the 2, is really more of a target than I would say Andre Carson. And so it's just a matter of that. It's about trying to rig the game because doing it the right way and actually doing it based on policy is not working. And so we did have a, was it Thursday? We had a press conference Thursday to speak about this, and then we've been putting out things, we've been having conversations. And I'm going to say this last part here, and then I'll wrap it up, and there's more I can say, but I'll let others say. I'm confident that all Republicans are not comfortable with this. I ran into a Republican representative outside of the State House, and just the real quick conversation we had, I know he was not enthusiastic. In fact, he ended it by saying, I think I need to rethink my career choices. And the other thing I'm going to say is if you listen to what's being said by the governor, the House Speaker, and the President of the Senate, they don't sound like they're overly enthused about doing this. So we'll see if it actually comes to fruition in Indiana, but I'm pretty confident the R's, or at least some of the R's, are not in support of this either.
Representative Pryor, I know that you would like to speak on this. This was a 3-part question. The original question, and it says, how can we stop this? Letter writing to representatives like Jim Banks is ineffective because they side with Trump and not the people. And this is the final part of the question. What's the biggest challenge faced by IBLC?
So I'll take the first and second part and maybe start on the third part, and then I think it's more appropriate for our chair to maybe kind of talk about IBLC as an entire organization.
Very good.
This is a power grab. And I serve on elections, and we had meetings across the state in 2021 because we do a census in 2020. We're set to do another census in 2030 as well. Constitutionally, we're supposed to have them 2010, 2030, 2040, and so forth. And we're supposed to draw the maps based on that. The maps that we have are heavily gerrymandered. I would say Fort Wayne, you have, I think, 3 senators that represent Fort Wayne. 4, which is absolutely crazy. It really should only be 2, and we should, quite frankly, have a Democrat, and I would dare to say an African American, who is out of Fort Wayne as well. But the districts are so gerrymandered already. And what we're seeing is what the Republicans have right now is not enough. And it is simply a power grab to get control and keep control, and to make sure the current president stays president. It's not about good public policy, because all those policies are bad policies and things that people are not supportive of. So what can people do? I will say this first: elections have consequences. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important for people to get out and vote. You know, we have to register people, and we have to follow with those folks to make sure they go out and vote. And what you're going to have to do is register people and make sure those folks go out and vote in 2026. So even if they do redraw those districts, they'll wake up the day after election and still not have all the wins that they want to have. So that's what we're going to have to do. But you have to call your legislators as well. You can call, you can write them, send them emails as well. The other thing is, you know, if you have people who are representing you that don't represent you, change it. And quite frankly, you can be the change as well. There's a lot of things that you can do, but you can be the change as well.
We will have one more comment for Representative Bartlett, and then, Chair, you can close out with the question how this is affecting IBLC.
Let me say this. In my opinion, we shouldn't be here. What happened January 6th in D.C. was treason. We had the power to put that guy in jail, and we blew it. We changed the name from treason to insurrection. The penalty for treason is death. And we changed the name from treason to insurrection so that we didn't have to put anyone to death. And we'll give you an example, and I'm not, please hear me, I'm not a P. Diddy fan. But here's a guy that had not been convicted of a crime and couldn't get out of jail. Donald Trump had been convicted of 34 crimes and couldn't get in jail. 34 felonies, he couldn't go to jail, but we could have stopped that before. So we got to step it up. We got to step up our game and make sure when we're violated, we prosecute.
Thank you. Representative Hill?
Sorry, repeat that last part again.
Sure.
I just wanted to add something. You know, when we talk about the redistricting, the redistricting was done in such a way that the House Republican Campaign Committee participated in the drawing of the map. So with that being said, they knew where the Democrats lived, they knew where the Republicans lived, so they drew the maps that way so that they could gerrymander each district. That is why it is going to be progressively harder for the Democrats to get additional seats. That's why when you have new people, new residents move in, those individuals have got to register. They've got to come and vote. When those young people get of age where they can vote, they're going to have to register and vote. Those are the ways that you change the districts, okay, along with making sure that your voice is heard. Otherwise, it's going to take forever or another redistricting to get your voice out there.
Very good, thank you. Chair, the final question. What's the biggest challenge faced by IBLC?
Okay, and I want to add on one other thing. So multiple of us were interviewed, multiple of us put out statements based on this, and one of the things I put out, and I want you to think seriously about this, and what I'm going to talk about is not an R or a D thing, it's a we thing. You've heard today about cuts that have been made, cuts in terms of health care, cuts in terms of education, cuts in terms of, and I won't go through any more of the list. If we are called back for a special session, now we've just cut a bunch of things that people need. Special session means we, as reps and senators, get paid. Now, I'm not saying we want to go back, so understand my point here is when we were called back into special session for abortion, it cost you, the taxpayers, about $240,000. So if we get called back in for redistricting, it's going to cost, conceivably, that much, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depends on how long we're in. I think we were in 2 weeks for abortion. So I want you to keep that in mind as well as, yeah, okay, we don't have money, we're going to cut stuff over here, but then you want to pull us back in and just cost the taxpayers money. That $240,000 could have gone a long way in terms of, SNAP, sorry, that's the other one I really want to mention too. Feeding children, helping with health care, helping with so many things. So that's another point I want to bring up. And then real quick, challenges for IBLC. You know, we do this series of town halls because for us, engagement is important. Advocacy is important. I'm stealing Representative Shackelford's word there. That's her word. Advocacy is important. Challenges is getting people engaged in the process. As Representative Pryor mentioned, getting people registered, but it's more than just getting people registered, getting them informed so that they will go and vote. It's easy to fill out a card somewhere and go, okay, I'm registered to vote. But if you don't actually vote, that doesn't mean anything. So that's one of our challenges and part of that is letting people know, hey, you have people in elected seats that are doing X, Y, and Z. I see your ISTA shirt. There's a lot of stuff that has happened, and I'll share this with you. Representative Hunley and I actually I worked in public education for a long time when I lived in Indianapolis. We worked at the same school district. So education is big for me, but how many ISTA people or people in general vote for the people that are punching them in the face? And you understand, I don't mean that literally, I mean that figuratively. So that is something in terms of a challenge that we see. And why we do this and other things we do is to get people informed so you understand there are people that are elected that don't care about you. They don't think about you. They care about other people.
Very good. In the essence of time, we have several questions. If we could possibly limit it to one response so that we can get in as many questions as possible. This is in relationship to SB 142, eviction issues. Will the court look at past history, or is that gone? If someone is evicted and pays over and over, it costs the landlord rent. It says, no, my customer, tenants, stays for years. Thank you for your response. Thank you. We're going to hear from our representatives real quickly.
Yes. So here's the deal. There's a judgment. In order to be evicted, you have to have a judgment from a court. And in that judgment, not only do they expel you from the actual location, but they also have court costs and other costs that you may owe the landlord. Once you pay those off, they don't even have to have a hearing. The court can actually expunge your eviction. So there's no other fees or anything else associated. Once you pay that judgment, then they can expunge your eviction. Okay. Well, I don't know who keeps the money. The bottom line is you can get your eviction off your record.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the next question. Representative Taylor, provide more information on the real threat to Indiana XBE programs and the fact that back XBEs continue to be under party per supplier diversity.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, as most of you know, Indiana has one of the best programs in the state for minority women and veteran-owned business programs. And when this whole discussion was going on in regards to the elimination of DEI, this issue came up. Now, the issue came up in the Senate because it was a Senate bill that started the discussion. But thanks to my colleagues in the House, we were able to get language. We were able to get language in the bill that specifically says that program is lawful as long as it still exists. Now, the caveat of that is that as long as it still exists. And in order for the program to exist, you have to do what is called a disparity study. And you do that like every 5 years, which looks at whether or not the contracts that were let were actually provided equal opportunity to those smaller women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. Well, we're at the point now where we should be doing that. The Holcomb administration put an RFP, a request for proposal, out on the street before they left, and now they have received bids, but they have not executed on who's won the bid. So the bottom line is we have to figure out when the Brown administration is going to let this contract so we can do the disparity study to protect the program. So hopefully that provides, hopefully I wasn't too long or convoluted on that, but the bottom line is the program is available, and in order to keep it, we got to do the disparity study.
Very good.
Right.
Okay, we'll go.
The big beautiful bill is a federal, but remember it's federal. This is the state of Indiana.
Okay.
They can talk to us after they
follow up. Sorry, everyone, sorry. We will be available to have conversations afterwards. We want to get through their questions.
Thank you. Thank you. In the coming sessions, will there be any additional attempts to create, pass, and implement an hate crime bill in Indiana?
Thank you for that question. For this past session was my third year presenting my bill to have Indiana catch up with so many other states and have a official codified bias bill. And all 3 years I have sat and seen it looked over, and I'll be back again this year with more fire and more people behind me, because we've got to look at every citizen in the state as equal in every way, and that's why I think it's so important. Thank you.
Thank you. Rent escrow in Indiana. When can we get a rent escrow policy implemented in Indiana? Indiana is one of only 6 states without one.
I'll start off and please add in. And we talk about this quite a bit in both Tax and Fiscal Policy Committee and in Family and Children's Services, because we know that when we have some landlords who are not great actors, ones who, when someone calls and they ask several times for something to be fixed, it's not getting fixed. And so what an escrow account would do is it would allow you as the renter to say to, this is typically at your county clerk's office or another agency in the city, to be able to say to them, I'm going to give you my rent, you hold the money in escrow until my landlord fixes the issue, until they fix whatever it is. They fix the mold, until they fix the hole in the ceiling, until they fix whatever it is, right? This would be great. But we've been working really hard to try and get that. But I'm going to tell you that the group that was the biggest lobbying group against it this last time were actually folks from our county departments who didn't want additional work. And so it's going to take all of us to educate them, because what they said is we don't want to become debt collectors. They said they don't want to get in the middle, but that's not what happens. People who want to pay their rent are the ones who give their money willingly over for escrow. And so you're not chasing people down for money. It's folks who want to pay their rent, but they also want to live in a place that's habitable and that is safe. And so we are working hard to push for this here in Indiana, but we need all of you to continue to advocate for that.
Representative Pryor.
Thank you. And remember, the bill that I mentioned was the rent escrow bill, House Bill 1373. It was introduced this year. The bill did not get a hearing. This is what people need to do. Contact your elected officials. When I said that elections have consequences, they do. And one of the reasons why we have not been able to get some of this very important and meaningful legislation passed is because we don't have enough people in the legislature that has a conscience that will support and vote for these particular bills. And so this has been one thing that we have tried to get. A couple of years ago, we had a utility in Indianapolis, well, not a utility, we had a company that had rental apartments, and the water was getting ready to be cut off. They owed the utilities millions and millions of dollars. And the apartment association thought they had a lot of power in the legislature. They found out they didn't have as much as the utilities, because the utilities were saying, we want our money. So we can make a difference, but it's going to have to take everybody working together, people getting out to vote, and making sure your elected official know this is important to you.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your efforts, but it's tough living here politically. Any words of encouragement?
Please stay.
Don't leave us.
Because we definitely need you to get these good policies in place and to get rid of the bad policies. We want you to be a part of the change, and we're delighted to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to add real quick. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm repeating myself, but get registered. Make sure everyone you know is registered. Make sure they vote. Share information. Share what's going on with people so they know whom you need to look at in terms of, yes, I'm going to vote for that person again, or whom you need to look at and go, yeah, it's time for you to move on with life. So just stay engaged in the process. And as Representative Bartlett said, remember the State House is your house. You can come down. During the committee part is when you can come down and present. If you can't make it, you can write letters, send emails, and even ahead of time, when you see legislation, reach out to those committee chairs, those ranking minority members, and talk about how this is a good or a bad idea.
Very good. Thank you.
Right quick, I just want to say most of your legislators have e-blast. And what they do is they send e-blast out to everybody whom they have their email address to. And that way you'll find out what's going on as soon as possible, as opposed to waiting until the end of session or until they have a town hall meeting mid-session. Also, at the beginning of session, you get mailed out a survey. Complete those surveys and send them back or email them back, whatever way is most convenient for you. We use those surveys so that we'll know what's important to you, what you want to see changed, and what you don't want to see changed. Thank you.
Okay, very good. This will be the last question because of time, but our representatives have agreed to stay after if you have any other questions.
And senators.
Oh, yeah. Yes, reps and senators. If Governor Bryan decides to make changes to steal U.S. congressional district mid-December at request of his master Trump, what are some of our plans to bring attention to Indiana residents? Rally, protest, pursue Republican districts?
Thank you so much for the question, and would say that a couple of things. One is that I'm looking at Senator Taylor here because he brought up this point during our meeting yesterday, that if they change the maps, it doesn't change who we are as Hoosiers, it doesn't change who we are as voters. And so there's an acronym that people use, FAFO. I think that maybe when they change these maps, they're going to find out how mad people are. They're going to find out how we don't want Washington dictating what we do here in Indiana, and they're going to find out that we can get those seats back. Because I will tell you that within my lifetime, right, Indiana has been a much more balanced state, and we can get back to that. We absolutely can. Now, when we mention the voting and the voter registration, and I know that we beat this drum today, but here's the fact of the matter, that right here in Allen County, the voter turnout was less than 60% across the state of Indiana, but here in Allen County, it was even less than that, meaning that people aren't turning up. And so that's even everybody in your group chat, on your text, they're all not showing up to vote. And so we've got to be looking at each other. We got to each one bring one to the polls, because it's not just about registering, it's about getting folks there. And that's it.
Very
a rally
good.
is good, but voting is better.
Thank you. This will close out our Q&A, and the chair will provide the closing remarks. Thank you.
And again, I apologize for not getting to everyone's questions. Out of respect for time, we need to wrap up, but we will be hanging around to have some more conversation with you afterwards. First, I would like to thank the reps and senators who came and were part of the town hall. Appreciate them. I'd also like to thank our executive director, Alexis. She does a lot of work in putting this together. Also, Lanaya, who's a former IBLC intern and now on staff at the State House. Thank you again to our sponsor, the Fort Wayne Urban League, Ms. Arrington. Thank you. You can stand up so everyone can see you. Thank you for your support in working with us. We greatly appreciate it. I'd also like to thank the wonderful mayor. Mayor Tucker. And our wonderful moderator, Councilwoman. All right. A couple of other quick thank yous is Michael, and the team that's working on streaming. They're up in the booth. Thank them for putting this out live, and then it'll be available to watch later. So again, we do this because it's our job to work for you. We were put into office by you, so we feel it is important that we do these statewide tours to get out in front of people, talk to them about bills, talk to them about legislation that passed, talk about obviously some that didn't pass, which are good and bad, and keep people informed so you know what's going on, and then provide an opportunity to answer some questions. So we will continue to do this. This is a big initiative by IBLC, and we want to make sure that we, the people that represent you, get out in front of you and not hide and be there available for you. Oh, I do want to say something real quick because this question has come up. The question has come up is IBLC a Democrat-only organization? The answer to that is no. We are nonpartisan. It just turns out that in Indiana, all the black members are Democrats. So there was a gentleman from Muncie, and I'm brain hiccuping his name. Jim Van Leer. That was before my time being in office. So we have had a Republican black member of the State House in terms of the House and the Senate. And I want to talk about something else real quick that, going back to what Senator Hunley said in terms of how the state can structure. So I mentioned family history of my father being in 33 years and then my mother finishing his term when he was elected. Democrats were actually in control of the State House at one point in terms of the House. There was a point when Pat Bauer was Speaker of the House and my father was second in command. So we can get back to a not so supermajority situation in the state of Indiana if we get people engaged in the process and get them out to vote and see what's going on. So again, and I know we talked about this a lot, I'm going to keep talking about this, get engaged and help the people around you get engaged with this process. We will have an election coming up next year where your reps and your senators will be on the ballot. Make sure people are informed of and know what's going on and take a look at the types of legislation that they're authoring and that people are supporting. Because if they're not giving you what you need as a community, what you want as a community, it's time for them to move on, and you can make that happen. So a couple of other things before we wrap up. On your booklet, In the bottom corner, you have contact information. So there's contact information for our Executive Director, Alexis Watts. Phone number, we have an email, iblc.iga.in.gov. We do have information out there online and on social media in terms of website, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Yes, I still call it Twitter. So keep an eye on what we're doing as IBLC. And then individual members also have their own social media, and then there are email blasts that are sent out. So please sign up for those as well, and we'll make sure that you get information. Also, I want to share with you, every session we have internships. So if you know of a college student that's a junior or senior in college, and they're interested in, this doesn't mean they necessarily have to be interested in running for office, but are interested in policy, interested in how the state runs, have them sign up. In fact, you can apply now. So it's for all four chambers, House, Senate, Democrat, Republican. It's a great way to get engaged and learn about the state and how we run. That's a little bit of that, how the sausage is made, will come up in that. But it's also a great career opportunity. I mentioned Lanaya was our intern last year. She's now been hired on to staff. Cherish Pryor is a former intern, right?
And now the floor leader for the House.
And now the floor leader for the House Democrats. Sorry, top three leadership. So we've had our previous executive director, Darion. He was an intern. He served as the executive director for IBLC and a legislative assistant for 2 years, and then he was hired by a lobbying firm. So it really is a great opportunity career-wise. The other thing, because you, like I and Representative Jackson, that are outside of Indianapolis, it is a paid position. So if you're worried about how you're going to financially take care of this, it is paid so that the interns, even if you don't live in Indianapolis, do have funds that come in so that you can pay for staying in Indianapolis. So again, those opportunities are available now. Please apply. I believe the deadline is October 31st. October 31st. Sometimes memory does work. It's college. Excuse me. It's college. Yeah, it's college. Or a recent graduate, yeah, but not high school. Yeah, not high school. Yeah. So, they can't. That's a good. Yeah, you can come down as a page and spend the day with your rep or your senator, spend time with them and learn about the process. So that's an opportunity for high school students. So thank you again. Greatly appreciate you being with us, joining us. And again, I know I'm going to keep repeating this. We're going to keep. Oh, yeah. So, I was headed towards that. I mentioned earlier that I stole from Representative Shackelford, and we kind of switched up the order here real quick, but advocacy is a big thing, and Representative Shackelford is going to talk real quick about advocacy and ways you can get engaged.
Real quick, when we talk about advocacy, I just want to make sure that we're putting the accountability and a responsibility on both sides. So as legislators, what we found that people need more training. They want to advocate, but sometimes they may not know how to advocate. So the IBLC Education Foundation started a program called Advocacy Works. This is our first year. So we had a whole application process, and we picked 25 leaders. Those 25 leaders are going through a 6-month training program. It is an in-depth training program. It is free to them. We cover all the costs that's associated with this program. Not only will they learn how the process works, they will learn about communication. They will go and have a day in D.C. They will come down to the State House and have a day. They will have a day at our City County Council office. This was the first year. We will be looking for those cohorts for next year. This year we just focused on Marion County and Indianapolis. Next year we will be going statewide. So keep an eye out for that program, because we know if we're going to train an army to be down at the State House, because we do not see enough people that look like us down there, then we're going to do it in a train-the-trainer type fashion. We train you, and then you go out and train others. The second piece is, what can you do now? During the summer is the best time to email, the best time to write your legislator. I want all of you guys to have saved on your computer our website, iga.in.gov. Through that website, you can find your legislator. You can easily send off emails to the committee chair. You can sign up to speak at committees. That website is very user-friendly. If you cannot use it, you have problems, call our office. Another thing we can do is we can assist you if you want to put together a lobby day, you want to put together an advocacy day or a rally, call our staff. We will help you book the room, get the equipment, because we sometimes cannot be all the time on that front line, but that is where we will want you to be, because we're in the back working with the legislators. And I know it seems like this is a happy day and we have happy personalities, and you may think that's the way that we engage with these legislators, but it is a tough fight. We get down and dirty. So during session, you do not see us so pleasant as today. So it kind of just gets under my skin when people feel like that we are not fighting enough, that we are not fighting strong, because this is a group that go to the mic, that not only go to the mic and fight strong, but fight strong behind the scenes. And we need you out there in the front. So I am a firm believer in advocacy works. If we did not have advocacy from you all, a lot of these bills that did not get passed, did not get heard, that is why. Because people came and they got in the ear of the chair, they got in the ear of the leader and said to them why they didn't want it. If we got legislation passed, like House Bill 1006, when we changed law enforcement, making sure down that law enforcement can get rid of their certification if they do something, that would not have happened if we did not have people down on them State House stairs. So when I talk about how many emails, how many calls that I've gotten for evictions, how many that I've gotten for food deserts, I can put it on one hand. People talk, but we do not see your talk turn into numbers. And down at the State House, we count every number. So it's okay if you want to talk at the beauty shop and the barber shop and you want to come in here, but until you send an email, until you make a phone call, until you show up and testify, your voice is not counted. And we want to make sure your voice is counted. So that's it. We love you, but we want you to get and stay involved. And it is a persistent staying involved. We know it is hard. We know that it gets to you. But if you want to create change, and this is very incremental change that takes place at the State House and at the federal level, you have to stay in the game. So please get in the game and stay in there.
So as we wrap it up one more time, iga.in.gov, you can find out everything about every piece of legislation, the authors, co-authors, sponsors, amendments, committee it's going through, whose name is on it, when the votes happen, who voted for it. And again, take a look and look at the people that represent you and make sure that they are representing you in the right way and the right way that you need them to do. Thank you again. Appreciate your time and effort, and have a good rest of your weekend.